The grand viewing hall of the celestial ascendancy was silent, a monument to serene power. Its walls shimmered with the captured light of distant nebulae, and the air carried the subtle scent of ionic blooms. In the center, upon a dais of living crystal, sat the princess. Her form was elegant, her skin possessing a faint, pearlescent sheen, and her large, luminous eyes observed the procession of emissaries with polite detachment. Today, the lesser species of the newly contacted Orion Spur were presenting themselves not to her. It was a ritual. The insectoid caverics clicked their honorifics. The methane-breathing Jellian orbs floated and hummed. Each species was a study in predictable biological and psychological patterns, neatly categorized by the ascendancy xenologists. Then the humans entered. There were 2 of them. They walked without the measured glide of her people, without the alien scuttling or floating of the others. Their gait was a thing of efficient, articulated motion. They wore simple, dark uniforms, absent of the luminous embroidery or shifting colors the princes expected from a species seeking favor. Their ambassador, a male with weathered features, gave the formal bow dictated by protocol. His companion, a female aide, stood a pace behind, her gaze quietly sweeping the room. The princess acknowledged them with the slightest incline of her head, her melodic voice filling the space. "The Ascendancy welcomes the representatives of Terra. We perceive your world has achieved unity. A commendable, if belated, milestone." The ambassador spoke, his voice steady, his words of peace and cooperation perfectly rehearsed. The princess listened, but her attention, unsettlingly, drifted to the aide. The woman was not looking at the throne, nor at the wonders of the hall. She was looking at her, not at her regalia, not at her position, but at her. And the depth in that look was profoundly wrong. Human eyes, the princess knew from briefings, were simple binocular organs. But in this moment, they felt like vortices. The aide's gaze held a quiet, relentless focus. It was not threatening, not adoring, not fearful. It was comprehending. It felt as if the woman was seeing the curve of her cheek and understanding the evolutionary pressure of a low-gravity homeworld, was noticing the slight tremble in her third finger and intuiting a latent neurological trait of her lineage. It was a gaze that collected data far beyond the visual spectrum. A faint, unfamiliar heat rose to the princess's cheeks. She broke protocol, interrupting the ambassador mid-sentence. Her question was directed at him, but her luminous eyes were locked on the aide. "Your companion. Why does she observe with such intensity?" The ambassador glanced back, unperturbed. "Forgive her, Your Eminence. Dr. Elara is our chief xenological observer. She learns by seeing. Seeing is one function. This is something else," the princess said, the harmonics of her voice betraying a ripple of unease. Elara, for that was her name, finally spoke. Her voice was low, calm. "It is respect, Your Eminence. To see truly is the highest form of respect we know." The audience concluded. The princess, however, found the human's gaze etched into her consciousness. It was an echo that would not fade. That night, in her private gardens under a manufactured binary star set, she heard a step. It was Elara, standing at a respectful distance. "Having been granted informal access by a chamberlain, you are far from your delegation, observer," the princess stated. Not turning, "I wish to apologize if my observation caused you discomfort." It was not discomfort. It was a disruption. The princess finally turned. "Your files state you are a scientist. You break down beings into components, into data. Is that what you did?" Elara took a slow step closer. "We have a saying. The eyes are the windows to the soul. It is unscientific, of course, but it contains a truth. We believe pattern recognition of both the physical and the behavioral can lead to understanding. I was not analyzing you as a specimen. I was trying to see you as a person. A person. The princess tasted the word. You project your own concept of consciousness onto me, don't you? Ilara asked, her head tilting slightly. Your ascendancy categorizes us as gregarious, tool-using, bipedal, ambition-driven. Is that not also a projection? The silence that followed was not hostile, but charged. The princess found herself under that gaze again, but here, away from the throne, it felt different. Less invasive, more shared. What did you see? She heard herself ask, the question leading her before she could consider its implication. Ilara's eyes softened. I saw someone who has never been looked at, only beheld. I saw the weight of a dynasty in the way you hold your shoulders. I saw, in the micro-expressions around your eyes, forgive the term, a curiosity about the universe that your role suppresses. I saw loneliness, wrapped in the absolute certainty of power. The princess felt a jolt, as if struck by a low-voltage current. No subject, no sycophant, no rival, no allied Xeno had ever spoken such things. They were impossible to say. Yet this human, from a species so young it was a blinking infant beside the ascendancy, had said them. And worse, they resonated with a truth that vibrated in her very core. You are presumptuous. The princess whispered, but there was no force behind it. I am observant, Ilara corrected gently. And I observed that you asked me a question in a hall full of your superiors. You sought a truth, even if it broke decorum. That is a very human thing to do. Over the following solar cycles, a most irregular dialogue began. Through secure channels and in secluded garden corners, they talked. The princess learned of human history, a turbulent, violent, passionate saga of falling and rising again. She heard of art born from despair, of kindness flourishing in ruins, of a stubborn, illogical hope that defined the species as much as their opposable thumbs dot in turn. She spoke of things she had never voiced. The crushing isolation of her destiny, the sterile perfection of her world, the deep, unacknowledged yearning for something real. Ilara listened with that same deep gaze, not with pity, but with a profound, acknowledging empathy. She did not offer solutions. She simply witnessed, and in that witnessing, the princess felt a weight she had carried for a lifetime begin, molecule by molecule, to dissolve. The crisis arrived from the cosmic dark. A marauding swarm from the galactic fringe, a voracious, non-conscious entity, bypassed ascendancy defenses. It moved not for conquest, but for consumption, stripping worlds to their cores. Military councils convened. Strategies of immense power were proposed. Stellar lances, gravity implosions, all blunt instruments of terrifying scale that would also eradicate the biospheres they sought to save. The princess sat in the strategy conclave, the weight of billions of lives pressing upon her. The admirals and grand engineers presented their devastating plans. It was then a quiet, clear voice spoke from the observer's gallery. It was Ilara. You are trying to cut out a cancer with a hammer, she said. The room froze at the breach of protocol, at the crude analogy. The swarm is a biological processor. It follows resource gradients. It is, in its way, predictable. To fight a processor, you do not need a bigger hammer. You need a better algorithm. Outrage erupted, but the princess raised a hand. Silence fell. Explain, she commanded, her eyes meeting Ilara's deep, unflinching gaze. What Ilara outlined was not a weapon, but a manipulation. A subtle, precise deployment of specifically engineered pheromone mimics and resonant gravitational pulses. A pattern of misinformation fed directly into the swarm's simple decision core. It would require minimal energy, but exquisite timing and understanding. It was a trick, a lie told to a mind the size of a solar system. It was, the princess realized with dawning awe, a profoundly human solution. The Ascendancy's military rejected it as absurd, undignified, a child's gambit. But the princess, remembering the depth in a human's gaze, remembering the stories of a species that survived not by being the strongest, but by being the cleverest, by outthinking its predators, insisted. She wielded her authority for the first time not as a symbol, but as a will. The operation was a ballet of precision. Human science vessels, small and agile, worked in tandem with the Ascendancy's mighty fleet. They did not fire a single shot. They released their crafted signals, a symphony of deceit. And the swarm, a mindless beast of consumption, altered its course, turning slowly, irrevocably, away from the populated worlds and into the empty, bait-rich void of a prepared nebula dot in the aftermath. The viewing hall was again filled. But now the atmosphere was different. Awe had replaced condescension. The princess sat on her dais, but she did not feel its cold solidity as she once had. Before her stood the human delegation. The ambassador offered formal words of congratulation for the alliance's success. When he finished, the princess stood. She descended the steps of the dais. An act so unprecedented a ripple of shock went through the assembled nobles. She stopped before Ilara. The room held its breath. She looked into the eyes of the human, into that deep, observing, understanding gaze that had first seen her not as a princess, but as a being. All the sterile glory of her empire, all the predictable patterns of 1,000 species, paled before the terrifying, beautiful complexity she found there dot her voice. When she spoke, was for Ilara alone, yet it carried in the silent hall. "I understand now," the princess said, the harmonics of her voice soft with wonder. "You look so deeply, because you are looking for yourself. You find the loneliness, the curiosity, the hope, the cunning.